Iranian as well. I'm a big fan of you and your father. I just want to say first thank you for everything you've done for us to stop the overreach of the federal government. My question's on Iran. I wanted you to explain how you came to the conclusion to vote in favor of sanctions on Iran, considering in the past that seems to be a precursor to war in Libya, in Iraq. I mean, there was millions of children that died from the sanctions there. Can you just help me explain how you came to the decision to vote in favor of sanctions against Iran?
Right. The big debate over Iran, and it is a very emotional debate, is over Iran getting nuclear weapons. And I don't think it would be a good idea for them to have nuclear weapons. I think it could destabilize the Middle East. And then the question is, how do you respond or try to prevent them from having nuclear weapons? You can do nothing. You can do a little bit, which I think would be sanctions, or you can have an all-out war where you invade. And I did finally come down to the conclusion that doing something was better than doing nothing. But I still do argue very strenuously, and I think it's important, there may be people in this room who disagree with me, is that we have to be careful about having a preemptive war in Iran, in the sense that you sometimes get unintended consequences. And a lot of people think, oh, that's really radical left-wing not to be for a new war. But to tell you the truth, if you ask the troops, are you ready to go for a third war now? Our troops are not. The young men and women that have been volunteering, they're not ready for a third war right now. We can't afford it, it's another reason. But also, even many conservatives, the last three heads of the U.S. Central Command, you don't think of generals as being from the left wing, General Zinni, General Abizaid, and Admiral Fallon, all said that if we have a preemptive strike or bombing on Iran, sometimes you rally the people around their own leaders. You get nationalism there, and they rally around the mullahs. So the people, this happened a little bit when they had that election. It wasn't a fair election, you know, and Ahmadinejad won again. But when they had that election, I remember when the guy who was running, his son was over here, he was telling us, keep it down. Don't be in, because by Americans being in favor of the people running against it hurts their vote. Because nobody over there really wants to be seen as being just sort of the puppet of the Americans. So sometimes we get the opposite of what we intend, and I think bombing could end up rallying them around their leaders. Other people are saying militarily it won't work, that the stuff's too far underground to even get militarily. And the final point I'd make on Iran, to just have everybody think about it a little bit, is that the head of the Mossad, this is Israel's intelligence agency, the head of the Mossad said about 3 weeks ago that we need to be careful about saying that Iran getting a nuclear weapon is an existential threat to Israel, because if we say that, we trap ourselves into one response, and that is cataclysmic war. And you can't accuse the head of the Mossad of saying he wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Obviously he doesn't, but he's worried about the repercussions. So even in Israel, people think, oh, everybody in Israel are all for attacking Iran. Israel's like we are. They're a pluralistic society with agreement and disagreement. Not everybody over there wants war either. But it also means you can't be shrinking away from it completely. And I took the middle ground on the sanctions to see if sanctions will work. And there are times when sanctions have made it worse. I mean, there are times leading up to World War II, we cut off trade with Japan. That probably caused Japan to react angrily. We also had a blockade on Germany after World War I, which may have encouraged some of their anger. But I think foreign policy is not always an exact right or wrong answer either, and that there's a lot of murkiness, and that we need to just, one, be careful, reluctant to go to war, and make sure that when war does happen, if it ever does, it goes through Congress and isn't the decision of one person in the White House.